Hello, and welcome to StoryHouse. The book I am presenting to you today is The Shallows, subtitled What the Internet is Doing to Our Brains. Have you ever felt concentrating on one thing is becoming increasingly difficult? It's hard to settle down and read for a long time. After just a few minutes, you can't help but take out your phone to browse Facebook or Instagram to feel comfortable. Or when pondering a question, you often get interrupted by app notifications, preventing you from fully focusing on problem solving. How did all these happen? Why is it becoming harder to concentrate our attention? The author of this book, Nicholas Carr, argues that while we enjoy the vast amount of information provided by the internet, it also changes the way we think, causing us to lose our ability to concentrate, and making it difficult for us to engage in deep reading and thinking. Nicholas Carr is a graduate of Harvard University and is a renowned technology writer and innovation research specialist. He has served as the executive editor of Harvard Business Review and frequently contributes articles to reputable publications such as the New York Times and The Guardian. In this book, Carr draws upon the famous viewpoint of Marshall McLuhan, a master in communication studies, who stated, "The medium is the message." While we use media to convey information, the medium itself also influences our way of thinking and shapes our society. For example, the invention of writing and books shifted people's mode of expression from emphasizing emotional intuition to focusing on rational logic. With the widespread adoption of television and broadcasting, individual thoughts and feelings tend to become more uniform, and the world becomes a closely interconnected global village. Carr thinks that this viewpoint is equally applicable to the internet. He used the latest findings from neuroscience research to analyze how the medium of the internet changes our brains and thinking patterns. After its publication in 2010, the book climbed the New York Times bestseller list and was a finalist for the Pulitzer Prize in 2011. Below, I will provide an overview of the book's main content in two parts. First, why media can change our way of thinking, and second, how the internet makes us shallow. First, let's discuss why media can change our way of thinking. To explain this question, we must first understand how the brain works when it comes to actions and thoughts. The brain serves as the biological foundation of thinking. For a considerable time, neurobiologists believed that only children's brains generated new neurons, which then combined to form neural circuits responsible for performing certain tasks. Around age 20, brain development would cease, and no new neurons would be produced. Over time, existing neurons would gradually diminish, leading to various issues such as decreased memory and comprehension abilities. In the 1970s, with advancements in brain science technology, neurobiologists began conducting a series of experiments using brain scanners and other detection tools on both animals and humans. They were astonished to discover that the brain exhibits strong neuroplasticity, meaning that new neurons continue to be generated, forming new neural circuits, and thereby altering the brain's structure. In one experiment, researchers trained adult monkeys to use a claw to obtain food. As a result, they found that the areas of the brain's cortex associated with hand control, including visual and motor regions, significantly increased in size after the training. Scientists also found that established neurons are not fixed and unchanging. They can assume different tasks depending on the circumstances. For instance, studies have demonstrated that when a person unexpectedly becomes blind, the visual processing areas of the brain's cortex do not atrophy. Instead, these neurons adapt to process auditory information, leading to enhanced hearing abilities in many blind individuals. If the person subsequently learns Braille, these neurons will be redeployed to process tactile information. In addition to behavior, mental activities can also change brain structure. In the 1990s, a research group in the UK conducted brain scans on London taxi drivers and found that the posterior hippocampus, a region crucial for spatial mapping, was significantly larger in taxi drivers compared to the general population. Furthermore, The longer the drivers had been in the profession, the larger their posterior hippocampus was. The researchers believed that navigating through the intricate and complex roads of London required constant spatial orientation and route planning, which led to the formation of new neural circuits in the brain and altered its original structure. Neuroscientists today believe that the brain changes caused by neuroplasticity occur constantly throughout our lives. Whenever we engage in actions or thoughts, a group of neurons in the brain becomes activated. If the same experience is repeatedly encountered, the connections between these neurons become stronger, forming specific neural circuits that enable faster and more efficient actions and thoughts. Neuroplasticity is one of the most significant evolutionary products as it allows the brain to surpass the limitations of genetics and develop new skills to adapt to a constantly changing environment and our own needs. It sounds promising, but neuroplasticity is indeed a double-edged sword. While it gives our brains flexibility, it can also trap us in rigid behaviors. In other words, neuroplasticity is not synonymous with elasticity. Once the brain has completed the deployment of new neural circuits, we tend to desire to keep them in an activated state, constantly repeating specific behaviors and thoughts. At the same time, the less frequently used neural circuits gradually fade away, and the neurons within them are reassigned to perform other tasks. However, this new state may not necessarily be what we desire or find beneficial. Pasco Rakic, a top neurologist at Harvard Medical School, has stated that neuroplasticity is not only a mechanism for development and learning, but can also be a pathological factor. For instance, mental illnesses such as depression and obsessive-compulsive disorder are associated with neuroplasticity. The more patients focus on and ruminate over irrational thoughts, the more it can exacerbate depression and compulsive behaviors, forming a vicious cycle that is difficult to break free from. Additionally, many addictive disorders such as alcoholism, smoking, or drug addiction involve the establishment of addictive neural circuits through chemical substances, leading to dependence on those substances within the brain. The theory of neuroplasticity provides a biological basis for the idea that media can alter our thinking patterns. The author highlights how humans continually enhance their capabilities by inventing various technological tools, such as telescopes for expanded vision and cars for faster mobility. Among these technologies, there is a category with the purpose of expanding our cognitive abilities, which the author refers to as intellectual technologies. Many media tools, including books, newspapers, radio, television, smartphones, and the internet, fall under this category. When utilizing these technologies, we adopt specific approaches to discovering, storing, and interpreting information. Consequently, certain neural pathways become strengthened, while others weaken or fade away, thereby shaping our thinking styles with distinct characteristics influenced by the media. For example, before the emergence of writing technology, people relied on oral communication. Knowledge was what the brain could remember. To enhance communication efficiency, people developed various expressions and grammar to make language more rhythmic and easier to remember. Archives, legal notices, and literary creations in oral cultures were transmitted through the form of recited poetry. The epic poems of Homer, created by the ancient Greek poet Homer, were initially passed down orally before being recorded in written form after a long period of circulation. Due to the limitations of oral transmission in conveying information, oral cultures emphasized more on emotional depth rather than the logical coherence and accuracy of content. Later, with the advent of writing and the invention of movable type printing, people gradually entered the era of written culture. Under the influence of written culture, the speed and depth at which people process information significantly increased. Previously, the speed at which people received information was equivalent to the pace of oral expression. In the early stages of written culture, many individuals were not accustomed to visually discerning written words, and the habit of reading aloud persisted as a way to understand the content. However, With the proliferation of books and the refinement of grammar rules, people gradually developed the habit of rapid silent reading. Behind this shift lies the influence of neuroplasticity at work. Research by American developmental psychologist Marianne Wolfe has shown that the visual cortex in the brains of skilled readers develops specialized neural circuits to quickly recognize visual patterns formed by written words. The ability to read rapidly, cultivated by written language, significantly enhances our information absorption efficiency. Furthermore, reading requires sustained focus on a single stationary target. From an evolutionary perspective, this is an atypical demand. The innate tendency of the brain is to be inattentive and easily shift attention in order to be aware of as many surrounding factors as possible, such as the sudden appearance of a tiger or a fleeting fruit. However, during reading, individuals must train their brains to disregard the changing environment and resist the strong desire to shift attention from one sensory signal to another. This allows us to form neural pathways that control attention and prevent mental distraction. When a person is able to read quickly and with focused attention, they naturally have more mental energy available for deep thinking. Prolonged periods of concentration create a quiet space within the mind, where individuals can engage in associative thinking, draw inferences, and gain a deeper understanding of the author's intentions by integrating the content of the book. This is what many people advocate as deep reading. In 2009, researchers from the University of Washington conducted a study in which they used brain scans to analyze people's neural responses while reading novels. They found that with each new scene described in the novel, readers engaged in mental simulations in their minds, combining the behavioral and sensory details depicted in the text with their personal experiences. The active regions of the brain during reading are often the same areas involved in real-life actions, observations, and reflections. Therefore, during deep reading, it is not simply a matter of recognizing words, but rather engaging the brain in a state of contemplation and meditation, experiencing the intellectual and emotional stimulation conveyed by the written words, and actively forming one's own thoughts through interaction with the text. The increased depth of thinking that readers bring to the text also raises the expectations for writers. With the aid of written words, writers have the opportunity to review their works from a holistic perspective, ensuring coherence and examining the internal relationships through references to earlier and later sections. This process eliminates the common issues of redundancy and excessive repetition found in oral literature. Writers are motivated to continually revise their sentences, refine their arguments, and adjust their content for greater clarity and logical organization, thereby significantly enhancing the overall coherence of their works. This, in turn, raises the bar for readers, fostering a continuous improvement of both writers and readers in their mutual understanding and engagement. Furthermore, with the widespread availability of books, writers' thoughts and experiences can be accurately conveyed to a larger audience, and they can be compared and intertwined with the thoughts and experiences of others, sparking new insights and further promoting the development and dissemination of various ideas. As a result, in the evolution of written culture, the thoughts that writers can express and readers can comprehend have become increasingly complex and profound. The English vocabulary, which used to consist of only a few thousand words, has expanded to millions, and new words have emerged to express abstract concepts. People have become more accustomed to coherent and interconnected lengthy discourses within books. This cultivates a mode of thinking known as linear thinking. Linear thinking is characterized by a calm and focused approach, enabling logical and abstract contemplation of phenomena, leading to a deeper understanding of oneself and the world. The author believes that the linear thinking brought about by written culture is a crucial driving force of human civilization. This type of thinking is both flexible and profound, embodying the rationality of the Enlightenment. the creativity of the Industrial Revolution, and the subversive spirit of modernism. To summarize the first part of the content, the brain possesses strong neuroplasticity, and repeated behaviors and thoughts form new neural pathways, thus altering brain structure. When we engage with media, the media itself also influences our thinking through neuroplasticity. For instance, the development of writing technology has cultivated a linear mode of thinking that fosters focus and deep contemplation, ultimately driving the progress of human civilization. After discussing the characteristics of writing and its impact on our thinking, let's move on to the second part, where we will discuss how the internet affects our thinking and makes us shallow. The author believes that the internet, in contrast to writing, diminishes our ability to concentrate, shifting us from deep linear thinking to shallow fragmented thinking. As a medium, the internet has four main characteristics: hyperlinks, multimedia, social attributes, and automatic notifications. First, let's talk about hyperlinks. Many internet articles include hyperlinks that add clickable keywords, which lead to new pages, allowing readers to explore further related content. On the surface, hyperlinks may resemble footnotes in physical books, but the author points out that their actual impact is entirely different. Footnotes in physical books are usually brief and provide restrained supplementary explanations of the current content. Their purpose is to help us gain a deeper understanding of the current article without interrupting the continuity of our thinking. On the other hand, clicking on hyperlinks opens up independent new content, often with lengthy text. The purpose of hyperlinks is to encourage us to read more content, regardless of how much relevance it has to the previous article. The development of search engines further intensifies this phenomenon. Even if an article doesn't contain hyperlinks, we can still copy and paste keywords to search for more information. As a result, focused and in-depth reading transforms into fragmented reading, as we constantly jump between different texts, causing us to lose our ability to concentrate. A woman described her internet experience in the following way. When she was reading a novel by Dickens online, her gaze kept jumping around, as there were too many distractions that diverted her attention. She would go to Wikipedia to look up Dickens' biography, and then follow the hyperlinks on Wikipedia to another short story by Dickens. After 20 minutes had passed, she still hadn't returned to the original novel she was reading. The second characteristic of the internet is the abundance of multimedia elements such as images, videos, and audio. However, these elements also contribute to the fragmentation of our attention. Many people believe that multimedia enhances understanding and improves learning outcomes compared to plain text. There is some truth to this statement. For example, when studying history, having visual images accompanying relevant events can leave a deeper impression. However, similar to annotations, the effective use of multimedia relies on the moderation of its quantity and its relevance as a supplement to the learning content, rather than introducing entirely new content. Otherwise, it can disrupt the continuity of thought, just like hyperlinks. Imagine reading an electronic version of the book The Shallows online, and when it mentions oral culture, a 10-minute video about the representative work of oral culture, the Epic of Homer, is inserted into the book. After watching that video, your mind is filled with information about Homer's life and ancient Greek history, interrupting your previous thoughts on how media changes thinking, making it difficult to immediately follow the author's subsequent arguments. Moreover, many multimedia contents found online are pure advertisements, designed to lure us into clicking and paying attention. Apart from dispersing our focus, they offer little value. The third characteristic of the internet is its social aspect. Along with the dissemination of information, the internet provides a platform for discussing that information, where everything can become a topic of conversation. When reading news on the internet, we can repost and reply to others' comments. When watching videos on video sharing websites, we can leave real-time comments expressing our thoughts. Even mainstream ebook apps now offer public annotation features, allowing us to see others' reflections on specific passages in a book and engage in conversations. The author believes that this social trend will have a profound impact on reading and writing. In the past, reading was a highly private act, where readers engaged in a transcendent dialogue with the author through deep reading. Authors believed that readers would immerse themselves in their work, dedicating their rationality and emotions to understanding the conveyed message. Consequently, authors continually pushed the boundaries of writing, employing new vocabulary and grammar to depict nuanced emotional experiences, and using elaborate logical arguments to expound complex ideas. However, the internet has shifted the focus of readers towards the social attributes of content, rather than its intellectual or literary aspects. In other words, people increasingly view reading as a topic of social conversation rather than seeking intellectual enlightenment or pleasure. Since it has become a topic of conversation, the preference is for reading materials with lower thresholds. As a result, authors may abandon innovative and exploratory writing styles and instead favor easily digestible, fragmented writing that does not demand deep reading from the audience. The fourth characteristic of the internet is automatic notifications. In today's era of mobile internet, whether it's work or personal life, we are heavily reliant on various apps. Even when we hold a physical book with the intention of engaging in deep reading, we may still be interrupted by notifications from apps. WhatsApp reminds us of new messages from friends. Our email inbox receives work-related emails, and news apps continuously push popular updates 24/7. Due to the fear of missing out on important information, it becomes challenging to turn off these notifications. In this subtle and pervasive manner, we lose the ability to sustain prolonged focus. We develop a habit of checking our phones every now and then to see if there are any new messages or updates. If we resist this urge, we feel restless and uneasy. In summary, these characteristics of the internet encourage people to switch and jump between different pieces of information, focusing more on quantity rather than quality. However, everyone's time is limited, and if we spend all our time acquiring new information, we naturally have less time for deep reading of individual content. As a result of the stimulating training provided by the internet, the neural circuits in our brain responsible for seeking and evaluating information are strengthened. We become more sensitive to the dynamics of information and adept at skimming articles to quickly grasp the main idea. At the same time, the neural circuits that support sustained attention for deep reading gradually weaken and diminish in activity due to underutilization. This makes it increasingly difficult for us to concentrate and more prone to distractions. The author points out that this loss of focus can lead to a decline in our memory capacity. Our memory can be divided into two types: short-term memory and long-term memory. Short-term memory refers to our impressions, sensations, and thoughts in the present moment, which typically only lasts for a few seconds and is quickly forgotten. Long-term memory, on the other hand, refers to memories that can be stored for days, years, or even a lifetime, and are typically stored in the subconscious mind, retrieved when needed. The storage process for both long-term and short-term memory involves changes in synapses. Synapses are the connections between neurons, where chemical substances are transmitted, allowing neurons to connect with each other and form circuits to store information. Short-term memory involves changes in the state of synapses. To give an analogy, let's say a particular neuron has 1,300 synapses, with 40% of them in an active state, transmitting information to other neurons. When we store new short-term memories, around 50% of the synapses may become active, transmitting more information. Storing long-term memories, on the other hand, leads to changes in the quantity of synapses. Assuming a neuron initially has 1,300 synapses, with 40% of them in an active state, when forming a new long-term memory. The number of synapses connected to that neuron can double to 2,700, with the proportion of active synapses increasing to 60%. This process directly impacts the physiological structure of the brain. So, we need to remember one thing. It takes both energy and time to remember something. Nowadays, many people advocate for entrusting the task of memorization to the internet in order to free up our brains. Clive Thompson, a writer for the renowned technology magazine Wired, refers to the internet as our external brain. He believes that we can relinquish the effort of memorizing anything because all the information we need can be instantly found online. With this approach, our brains can focus their energy on more creative and human-centered tasks. David Brooks, a columnist for the New York Times, also expresses that the allure of the information age lies in allowing us to know less. The internet becomes our cognitive servant, shouldering the burden of memory and liberating ourselves in the process. The author points out that these ideas contain a significant misunderstanding. Those who advocate for outsourcing memory to the internet assume that the brain functions similarly to a computer, where different functionalities are unrelated. In a computer, information storage occurs in the hard drive, while information processing is performed by the CPU. Two independent processes. However, the brain does not operate in the same way. For humans, memory itself is a crucial step in learning and understanding, and these processes are intertwined and inseparable. Entrusting our memory to the internet would not only harm our cognitive abilities, but also pose threats to individuality and societal culture. Indeed, cognitive abilities are closely tied to memory. As mentioned earlier, the biological feature of long-term memory involves establishing more synaptic connections between neurons. During this process, the brain engages other relevant memories associated with the current one to assist in consolidation, thus forming rich associations between different memories. Neuroscientists have recognized that the subconscious, where long-term memories are stored, serves as a place for learning and understanding. Memories interconnect within the subconscious, forming a systematic knowledge structure that leads to deeper insights. In other words, if we cannot remember, we will struggle to think deeply about a subject. Here is a great example. When you input the structures of chemical elements into a computer, it will simply remember them as independent and unrelated entities. However, when our brain remembers these element structures, it engages in deeper thinking and stimulates new ideas. Famous chemist Dmitri Mendeleev spent many years searching for patterns among different elements. One day, he had a dream where the elements were arranged in a table. Upon waking up, he immediately recorded the table from his dream and used it as a basis to create the periodic table of elements. This process may sound dramatic, but modern science has provided a reasonable explanation for such moments of inspiration. Our subconscious mind automatically contemplates problems and reaches conclusions. However, the smooth functioning of the subconscious mind depends on our familiarity with various aspects of the problem and having enough material for the subconscious to consider. If Mendeleev couldn't remember the structures of the elements, how could his subconscious mind uncover the patterns among them? In addition, studies have shown that our learning ability is significantly affected by the stimulation of internet information. Researchers at Cornell University divided a class of students into two groups, allowing one group to surf the internet while listening to the lecture. These students not only visited websites related to the class content, but also accessed unrelated shopping websites, video platforms, and so on. The other group of students was required to keep their computers closed during the class. After class, the researchers conducted tests on both groups of students, and the results showed that the students who used the internet during the lecture had poorer memory and understanding of the lecture content. Deep thinking, which is related to memory, is also a source of innovation. Jordan Grafman, the director of the Cognitive Neuroscience section at the National Institutes of Health, believes that the distractions brought by the internet can harm our ability to creatively solve problems. When we are accustomed to switching between multiple tasks, our thoughts become superficial and prone to relying on conventional thinking and traditional methods. Many people have experienced this when solving math problems. If a problem is challenging and requires innovative problem-solving approaches, we typically need to maintain focused thinking for a significant amount of time to find a solution. If we are constantly distracted, our minds become blank, and we struggle to find any viable approaches. The author further points out that memory is not only the foundation of our learning and problem-solving abilities, but also a crucial element in shaping individual personality and even societal culture. A significant portion of a person's character traits is related to past experiences, such as the pain of failures, the joy of successes, and the gratitude for help received from others. These memories shape our personalities. The same applies to social culture, as every nation has its own collective memory. The shared understanding and emotional resonance associated with these memories connect people and give rise to the distinctive social culture. If someone is completely unaware of these collective memories, it becomes challenging for us to establish cultural identity with them. Therefore, individual personality and societal culture are not simply the sum of information. They also encompass our thoughts, understanding, profound emotions, and the connections formed between different memories. Memory only possesses its vibrant vitality when it is stored within our minds. If we upload all our memories to the internet and rely on search and retrieval whenever needed, we would only obtain fragmented external information. Ultimately, this would result in the loss of individual uniqueness and the depth of societal culture. In the author's words, it would be memory outsourcing leading to the decline of civilization. Indeed, in addition to impairing our memory and hindering our ability to think deeply, the loss of attention also has an impact on our moral compass and empathy. Researchers at the University of Southern California conducted an experiment where participants listened to descriptions of physical pain and emotional suffering while their brains were scanned. The results showed that the brain responds rapidly to physical pain, with the pain centers being activated upon hearing about someone's physical injury. However, the brain's empathetic response to others' emotional suffering is much slower. The researchers suggest that the brain requires sufficient time for reflection in order to comprehend the abstract experiences of others at the psychological and moral levels. The more our attention is divided, the more difficult it becomes to experience subtle emotions such as empathy and compassion, which are essential human characteristics. From this perspective, the loss of attention caused by the internet not only makes us more superficial, but also more callous. With that being said, this book has been pretty much covered here. The author believes that in this era of pursuing efficiency and speed, computers and the internet have indeed brought convenience to our lives. However, the author is concerned that as people increasingly rely on computers and the internet, deep and flexible linear thinking will be replaced by rigid algorithmic patterns. Our thoughts will become shallow, and our emotions will become indifferent. At that time, humanity will become replicas of computers. This future may sound like science fiction, but it is worth the vigilance and deep reflection of each and every one of us. All right, this is where I conclude the interpretation of the book The Shallows for you.